When Zora Arkus-Duntov retired as Corvette chief engineer in 1975, David R. McLellan was offered the job. He had worked with the master. He knew Duntov was going to be a tough act to follow. He also knew GM's enormous effort in the 1970s aimed at meeting ever more stringent emission, safety, and fuel economy bogies could bring the Corvette to its knees. Almost 25 years later, the Corvette's world-class stature speaks volumes about the vision and quiet leadership Dave brought to a precarious program way back in the mid-1970s.
McLellan had a tough job following Zora. They were different personalities. McLellan, of course, was very diplomatic and democratic, but a good engineer,
Dave had established a reputation where he was just the natural choice to move into the chief engineer's job of the Corvette. He didn't try to emulate Zora Arkus-Duntov, but he really did his own thing in basically working to make the Corvette and the Corvette project the outstanding vehicle it has.
And he was the right man for the time.
He inherited a beast of a car, overweight, throttled by emission hardware, which would get worse before it got better. For a while in the late 70s and early 80s, Corvette performance was an oxymoron. But Dave's low-key, laid-back style hid an intense bulldog determination to find within the maze of regulation a path to greater glory for the Corvette.
Stretch. We all talk about stretch goals in General Motors. If you worked for Dave, you had stretch goals. You had minimum resources and high output. You ran fast and you ran lean. He had a laser-like focus on predicting the sports car market. We introduced the latest technology fast and first. We had to be fast to survive.
I think he recognized certainly the threat from competitors both in Europe and in the Pacific, but he also recognized the power of the Corvette heritage, the power of the Corvette image and its significance in this country.
Dave, I think, brought the car into the world as a world-class sports car. He's the guy that moved it into a different plane of performance and capability.
Dave envisioned the Corvette as the #1 sports car in the world, and in the process, he drove the vehicle upscale and globally.
I do know that Dave was, his engineering brilliance, I think, enabled him to meet and discuss engineering issues with people from Porsche, like Dr. Porsche, or people from Mercedes. Dave was an engineer of global significance, if you will.
Today, General Motors is focused on global engineering, but let me tell you, Dave McLellan pioneered global engineering many years ago, and in the process taught me all about courageous leadership.
Dave McLellan has got a wide variety of interests. Yes, he is basically an outstanding vehicle engineer, but he's really also a very broad-based business person. And so that Dave, you can have discussions with Dave about business, about automobiles, very broad-bore individual.
The 1981 Corvette featured the world's first composite transverse leaf spring suspension system. It weighed 1/6 as much as the 80 system. The 1982 car was fitted with the first of a new generation of fuel-injected engines. The all-new 1984 car was state-of-the-art in aerodynamics, emissions control, weight savings, and electronics. Almost a decade after assuming the mantle, Dave had the Corvette headed back to the heights.
Customer focus. Dave knew the Corvette customer. We had to know the Corvette customer. We were engaged in speaking at Corvette clubs, dealer training, and in racing.
He saw racing as an important part of demonstrating to the world that General Motors, and i.e. the Corvette, could compete with anybody in the world.
Taking a page out of Zora's book, he began helping Corvette road racers fashion winning programs. To him, the racetrack was an extension of the proving grounds.
I can tell you that Dave was incredibly supportive of racing Corvettes, in particular at the what I'd call the entry-level professional racing.
The Corvette showroom stock was the real McCoy. That was a race car that we actually sold. And Dave actually was very supportive of that, had his Corvette engineering team work on those products, and then more importantly brought the learnings from showroom stock racing, which is a lot different than racing real race cars.
I believe he started out with Dick Gulstrand doing testing. As soon as there was a car available, he got one to Dick, and Dick started testing it under high-performance conditions and telling us everything about the car that was happening. If there was anything there that we needed to improve on, Dave wanted to know about it, and Dave took action when he found out that there was something that did need to be improved.
In the hands of racing legends like Kim Baker, Tommy Morrison, Dick Goldstrand, Doug Rippey, and John Powell, Corvettes won 19 of 19 SCCA endurance races in 85, 86, and 87. Dave and Chevy's Frank Ellis worked with Powell to launch the $1 Million Corvette Challenge Series in 88. A fabulous showcase for Corvette's performance. It was also a convenient venue for final development work on McLellan's most prized baby, the ZR1.
As some people might say, the ZR1 was probably Dave McLellan's legacy to Corvette.
Featuring Corvette's first overhead cam engine and bodywork so subtly altered it could easily be confused with the standard Vette, the ZR1 was introduced to the world automotive press at the 1989 Geneva Auto Show.
So it was important to do a new engine, and the ZR1 with the LT5 was what we wanted to do. But he brought the car along also, the widening of the body and the chassis modifications.
I guess when I think about Dave's legacy or greatest contribution to the Corvette, I have trouble thinking beyond the ZR1. I think that the ZR1 was such an outstanding car. It was definitely the epitome of C4. He was supportive of doing things like the world record speed run in the ZR1. You know, the attempt to set the world record, which we did set 3 world speed records with the ZR1. So he was very supportive of doing those things, and very anxious to get the information back so that he could get it into production on the car where needed.
The performance of it was a great time, and I think Dave was really basically the inspiration for feeling that the Corvette ought to be the vehicle that was setting these sort of high-speed performance runs, many of which stood for a long time.
As an encore, Dave's team re-engineered the standard 5.7L Corvette engine in 1992 to produce 300 horsepower. Traction control became standard. On July 2nd, 1992, a smiling McLellan stood by as the 1 millionth Corvette was driven off the Bowling Green assembly line. For the quiet kid from Detroit, it was a magnificent moment. Thanks to Dave, the plastic-bodied two-seater born in secret almost 40 years earlier had endured to excite and enthuse still more generations.
One significant contribution that Dave McLellan made to Corvette, which is not often spoken about, and that is that the concept of C5 was really the genesis of Dave McLellan. As you recall, Dave left the corporation after C5 had begun, and he had the insight to come up with several potential candidate structures for the car. In fact, he used a Lotus car as a subject, as a sample of what we might do. So Dave McLellan, in many ways, had a lot of impact on C5.
In many ways, the C5 was déjà vu for McLellan. If external forces almost derailed the Corvette in the 70s, internal forces made development of the C5 a tumultuous exercise.
We always heard stories about what Dave was doing, and somehow it was not the GM way at the time, but the car benefited from all of that.
Dave was a maverick.
Because of his creativity and passion for the vehicle, Dave was always in trouble one way or another. So I think it took guys like myself and Paul King and everything always out there trying to save Dave McLellan from extinction.
Known as an advocate for pushing the envelope, Dave McLellan wanted to make the Corvette the best possible statement for American technology. Beyond any doubt, he accomplished this. Dave McLellan, innovator, educator, Corvette legend, the quiet genius.
Dave McLellan was a great instructor. I've seen him. We used to have dealer meetings, and I can recall one dealer meeting where we invited our chief engineers in, and the dealers were somewhat berating him about the fact we didn't have a multi-valve engine in Corvette. And without missing a blink, he stood up at the chalkboard and spent 30 minutes explaining to them why we had the right engine, and they never asked another question.
The thing that stands out most about the day was his engineering creativity.
An incredibly creative mind. Dave McLellan had 10 solutions to every problem you could dream up. And he'd feel free to share them with you, and if you were designing something on the board, no matter what it was, working on a problem in a car, Dave had 10 solutions, and typically they were solutions that were not the kind of solutions you'd normally think of. Dave was not bounded by many boxes.
And Dave was an idea person. He was a great person to have around when you wanted to come up with new thoughts and new concepts and new ways to do things.
I felt that working for Dave McLellan was a real privilege because I was able to work with a man who had creative genius like none I've ever worked with before.
He was the greatest spokesperson you could ever have, both with technical people and with regular customers.
I don't think anybody understood the essence of what a Corvette should be more than Dave, but he knew how to transform that into a modern sports car and really got us on the journey that we're on now.